Okay. Hello, hello. I'm glad to see someone here. Hi.
Hi.
I'll
Let me
give
send
people a
a hi.
couple minutes to come on in or to get here. Let me see.
Light is so bright. I feel like I need my glasses or something. Whew.
All right. So I guess we could just go ahead and get started. You
Okay.
ready? All right.
Yeah.
All
Excited.
right, you guys. Well, welcome to my YouTube live series. It's called The Re-Education of God, and this is where we are demystifying spirituality from the stigmatism that has been placed on it, just mainly through the perspective of religion and things of that nature. So we have a guest speaker here. Her name is J.R. Baker Flowers, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce her to you guys, and then she'll go ahead and lead us into our topic because today we're talking about goddesses. And we have two goddesses in specific that JR will be talking about. I'm really excited to get to it. But first, I'm going to go ahead and give her an introduction. So, with more than 17 years as a social transformational educator, inclusive change management consultant, and executive leadership training consultant, also as the CEO of the Unlearning Project LLC, J.R. Baker Flowers, um, distinct approach to sacred divine feminine spirituality has transformed the lives of over 2,850 women globally. Also, as the CEO of Alchemia Akemaj, did I get
Yep,
that
you got
right?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
LLC. She infuses her extensive expertise in social change development with sacred teachings of womb cosmetology, divine feminine, archeo mythic, and archetypal symbolism, esoteric spiritual transformation. So, like in layman's terms, and also, I want to add in there that JR is a graduate of Clark Atlanta. So she
Yeah,
graduated
you.
from a historically black college. I just gotta
Yes.
give you your flowers for that, ma'am. I'm honored to
Yes.
have you here. I'm so glad that you
Thank you.
accepted the invitation. So if you don't mind just
Yeah.
sharing with us, like in layman's terms, exactly what it is that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much again for reaching out. This is such a wonderful honor and opportunity to commune with you and your audience and all of the folks that are watching. Thank you so much. So, in layman's terms, basically, I combine sacred spirituality from an ancient perspective and really digging into some of the mythic origins. But I also harmonize that with unlearning the racism, the sexism, the misogyny, and all of the isms that are really seeped into every area of our society. And for me, I have always been drawn to both domains, right? So I have always been very activated, and one of my sisters is on here, so she will let you know. My default is rage, and
Okay.
it's always activated, and I'm always provoked by many different forms of injustices. And over time, once I really started in my company, my first company, the Unlearning Project LLC, when I started to find myself naturally gravitating towards ancient religions, ancient mythic stories, and all of these things, and also archaeology, I really started to understand and also to observe a lot of the ways that racism and sexism and misogyny and also classism, how they are really and have been infiltrated into these very sacred ancient religions, right? And so I just feel like it's my one of my many callings, one of my many duties to make sure that as much as possible I apply all of the feels like hundreds of years worth of education and also practice working in social justice and social transformation to apply that in this domain too, because everything begins in the spirit. Every invention that we have, every conversation that we have, every feeling, it begins in the spiritual. And so if we can decolonize that, then imagine how much more free people would actually feel, right? And also when you speak about um historically marginalized communities, right? Imagine how they will feel to know that they come from a very ancient, a very primordial religion where the actual deities, the goddesses, the gods, and everything in between, they actually look like them. That's important, you
Yes,
know?
that is
And that's
important.
a yeah, that's a huge part of the work that I do and that I'm so passionate about too. So that's in a nutshell kind of what that is
I think
too.
that that's beautiful and that's
Thank
awesome. But I
you.
need to finish your introduction. I
Oh
apologize. So also, I wanted to let you guys know, and I want to let you guys know this. To me, it's important to like list her different qualifications that she has, just so you guys will know that she is telling you what her perspective, but she's also telling you from a place of education where
yeah.
she's actually learned, she has the background. So it isn't only her opinion. For me, it's my
Right.
opinion. I do
Right.
research, it's my opinion. For her, it's her opinion and her perspective, but it's from knowing the informational sources properly. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
J.R. Baker Flower, she also holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. She has a Master of Arts in Community Development and Planning. She has a professional certification in inclusive leadership. She has a certificate in applied mythology from the Pacifica Graduate Institute.
Mhm.
And she also attended neural mindfulness to become a practitioner with the certification I'm sorry, neural mindfulness practitioner certification from the accredited Neural Mindfulness Institute.
Institute. Yeah.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
That's a
And
lot.
I and
You're
I
very
plan on
accomplished and you look so young.
thank you. And I plan on getting like the Thanos level of even more degrees and even more
Oh, that's
certifications.
right.
I am the Lynn Cersei of like everything. I love
I
just
like that.
information. I love just being educated. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna collect them like Thanos was collecting all those rings. So yeah, thank you.
You are welcome. So today you have some information for us for there are three deities, and I said two, but there are
Yes.
two because I'm excited to talk about the
Yeah.
two. But we're talking about Medusa, we're talking about Lilith, and I'm so sorry. What was the third god we're talking about?
It is Hades.
Hades, yes.
Yeah.
So we're talking
Yeah.
about Hades, and we decided on these three gods because and goddesses because these are the ones I feel like have been, and you I think feel a similar way, have
Oh
been
yeah.
very demonized,
Yep.
and that has acted as a ward to deter people from
Mhm.
researching maybe these gods and goddesses to find out more about them because people have this mindset that they're demonic or they're evil or they're
Yeah.
with the devil. So, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, if we could
Yeah.
start with Lilith, I feel like, in my opinion, she's the most demonized
Oh
goddess
my gosh.
out there that I've come across.
Yeah, she is, I think people will agree that she has been one of the most demonized deities. And speaking of that word demon, I want to start by asking you all, what do you think the history and also the definition in an original context or historical context, what do you all think that that word actually means? Because one of the things that I have noticed in the last several years of really integrating myself in this research and on this path is that that word is really heavily steeped in our language and in our culture, right? If you think about just what it represents. So drop for me in the comments real quick. What do y'all think the word demon means? Why do you think we use it? And how do you think it became so popular?
Hmm, that's a good one. That's a good question.
And then also too, I want you all to really reflect on why goddesses in particular, like Lilith, like Medusa, and a few others, why do you think they have been called demons too? And you can either put it in the chat, you can reflect on it a little bit, because that's really going to set the tone
Well,
for our
I will
conversation.
go
What do you
ahead.
think?
I'll go ahead and share my opinion.
Yeah.
So for demons, really to be honest, I have no clue what that may mean, but I feel like that it might be I associate it with the name Damon because I feel like that's another way to pronounce the
Yeah.
word demon, but I have no
Yeah.
clue where that word comes from. But one of the reasons that maybe goddesses have been like demonized or made to be looked at as evil, I feel like could just be because they're feminine, and
Hmm.
our culture is steeped it's a patriarchy, so it's driven by masculinity, by men. So I feel like
Yep.
that's one of the reasons. For another reason, and not to make it a race thing, but I do feel like this is hugely important to what it is that we're
Hmm.
talking about, but also to disconnect the deities from their culture or from their
Yes.
people. So they're, disembodied, they're not connected. And you don't, so we as
Yep.
people don't know spiritually who it is that we are even connected to. That's what I'll say. Let
Correct.
me look
Correct. Correct.
in the
Yep.
comments and see. So Rahab 81
Hmm.
says that I think demon is a type of entity, not good or bad, but religion has made it very dark and negative. That's good. I like that.
Yes. Both of you are absolutely correct too. And when you said the word daemon earlier, that's actually correct. And the thing that's really interesting is that daemon is in its origins arrives from the Greek pantheon. And at the time, in a very ancient context, it didn't mean evil. It surprisingly meant divine intelligence. It also meant genius,
Oh,
right? And that's
oh,
something that's
wow.
really interesting. Yeah, so it had this very benevolent context to it. And what's so interesting is that some people during that very historical time period, they attributed a daemon to an intermediary between humans and God's source, right? So this daemon, this divine intelligence, who is benevolent, they would actually, you would be able to commune with them, ask them for better health, better intelligence, obviously, money, or making sure that your crops grow and are fruitful and abundant. And then they would channel that information according to them back to God, and then you would be blessed. But, and you're so right, Rahab, and also Ina, that um, during the Christian sort of takeover, the colonialist period, during that time period, through the Roman Catholic Church, Christian Church, that's when they changed the name, right? So that is very, very intentional, and
Yeah.
it always
Yeah.
has this sort of propaganda behind it, right? And think about why. Why do they
It,
not want us to have access to a divine intelligence? And then when you think about too, the way that churches have become structured, there's always a human, mostly a male, who is an intermediary. So they have taken the place of that ancient divine intelligence or that benevolent one,
And
right?
JR, really quick, just
Mm-hmm.
to so we can connect the
Yeah.
dots. When you say the Roman Church, you're referencing the Pope, right? The Vatican, that's
Yep.
the connection,
Yep.
right?
All in
Okay.
yep, in a very, very ancient context, and that practice has been trickled down throughout the centuries, right?
Okay.
And you see it where they have certain like bishops or priests, where in certain, religious contexts, you will go to give your confession to that person,
Yes.
right? But a human being, how can a human being who's made of flesh and bone just like you, how can that person then take what you've said or your aches or your woes, how can they take that directly to God? Wouldn't you be able to do that too if you're human? Right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's where that kind of shift and that evolution happened where Daemon became downgraded from a benevolent being to something that is this entity that's evil
Uh,
or malicious. And then when you add to that too, think about the ways that media is used. There's always so many movies, right? So many films, so many television shows about a daemon or a demon that we have to be fearful of. And that is also very intentional too. So
yes.
in
Yeah.
that context, when we really think about how goddesses like Lilith have often been described as wicked or lustful, there's another word that pops up here too, and that word is succubus, right? So
Yes. And
in
that's considered a demon too, a form of demon too, right?
it is,
Incubus,
it is.
succubus.
Yep, so it is a female or feminine demon, right? And what's interesting, and I had slides and everything for y'all, but anyway, we go.
We
But
Change your plans, you guys. Because this was our first time coming together on the line together, doing a co-host. So we didn't know you couldn't use a desktop. So she
yeah,
had a visual presentation put together for you guys to share. Unfortunately, because we're on our cell phone, she isn't able to
yep.
do it. But
But it's all good because we are gonna rock and we are gonna roll with it.
absolutely.
Right. And so a succubus is a female demonic entity, right? Whereas an incubus is a male demonic entity. But in this context, whenever you research a lot of information, historical information about Lilith, she's always described as one of four succubi, right? So there are others, but Lilith is always seen as the lead one, and that started in ancient Mesopotamia, right? The one of the many cultures that spoke about her. So you have ancient Sumerians, ancient Babylonians,
Mhm.
and also the ancient Akkadians as well, right? And there was this word that started to materialize for her again, succubus, and calling her a demon, and that also happened out of ancient Jewish mysticism that were it was also headed by male practitioners in that particular faith. And there's a painting that or an illustration that I was going to show you all that really captures why they call women succubi, or why they always refer to Lilith as a succubus. And that is, men will always say that it was a female demon who was on top of them and trying to drain the life out of them, right?
Mhm.
Now, that was only a fanciful kind of rhetoric to really talk about one, their fear of being um, possessed by a woman's primal sexuality, right? And also a woman
Mhm.
being on top of them during their sexual congress and all of that, right? And
And
they
we
would
see that
literally,
still today
till
in a
this
lot of
day,
cultures still
yep,
today.
still to this day. And I'm so glad you said that too, because when at that time in a historical context, when they would always talk about, oh, this succubus, this demoness, she came over me. So they blamed her because it was their excuse to talk about why they had wet dreams and all, or
Um,
nocturnal emissions.
she
And then
was a
also,
scapegoat.
right? And they also blamed Lilith. They began to blame a Lilith or a Liline, which is like a collection or a group of female demons. They would blame her for men failing in business, the crops going badly. They also said that when children became ill or when children died, it was because of a Lilith or because of Lilith
Yes.
herself. It was just always this blaming, right, on a feminine spirit or a feminine entity. So the thing to note here is that Lilith is not inherently bad. How could she be?
Yeah.
She was in many ancient spiritual systems. They always describe how she is the first woman ever created, right? Specifically in the
With
um,
Adam.
right, with Adam and the ancient Canaanite story, all of those things, right? And the reason why she removed herself from the Garden of Eden is because Adam wanted her to submit to him, right? And her leaving created this chain of events. In that mythic tale, it created a chain of events where she represents rebellion against patriarchy. She also represents divine feminine power and also strength. And in addition to that, too, have you all ever noticed how, if you look for illustrations about Lilith, she's always painted with one specific color, and the color is red? And why do y'all think that is? Why do y'all drop in the comments? Why do you think that Lilith is always depicted as either having red hair or wearing red, like in her style of dress? Why do you think that is?
Sacrifice, maybe?
Okay, so that's one. That's one thing. Sacrifice. Okay, what else?
It could also be like symbolize a whore, like her being a whore, maybe?
Okay, two. That's another. Okay.
That's what I got.
So no. And okay, so devil association. Thank you so much. That's my middle sister right there. Okay, menstruation.
Oh, Johnny B. Goods. Yeah, menstruation. Yeah. Those are
Hmm.
really good.
So
Yeah.
it's all of those things, right? When we think about the color red, that is always associated with blood, with sex, with the primal force of everything, right? And blood is attributed to that. So, yes, menstruation, feminine power, right? But also wrath and anger and rage, right? So, that is why she's always associated with the color red. But it doesn't mean that she is actually possessed with red hair or that red is her only color, right? And one of the things that we really have to remember as we are decolonizing sacred spirituality is that the use of symbolisms is from a human made or a male made, man made context, right? It doesn't mean that it's actually true, right? Um, but one of the things that Lilith represents for a lot of women, I've worked with her. I know a lot of women who have started their journeys working with her. One of the things that Lilith is great in her alchemical power, right? Like meaning her energy, her frequency. She teaches you how to stand up for yourself, right? She teaches you how to be a lot more vocal about your desires, about your own strengths, right? And about really crystallizing your own identity. And so, in a patriarchal context, yeah, she would be feared, right? And
Yeah.
maleness, it fears women's authority. It fears the wrath of women. And it's really not wrath that is unjustified. It's wrath if she's being harmed, or if she sees the land being harmed, or if she sees other human beings being harmed. Then, yeah, you should tap into that inner cosmic wisdom, right? She's not a demon. She's actually a feminine entity that you should tap into so you can be freed. She represents liberation, right? So that's one of the reasons why she's like one of the quintessential demons, right? Or she's been demonized for so long. Yeah, it's because, Lilith don't take no crap. And she
Yes,
teaches others how
yes.
not to, take crap either. So that's she's one representative of, why it's so important to go through a decolonization process, and
Mhm.
also the power that she can represent for a lot of women and other people too.
Yes.
Hmm.
So a decolonization process, and I know this is like a sidebar from the goddesses, but what does that look like? And exactly what do you mean by that?
A decolonization process. Yeah. So for me, one of the things that I really, really, really put emphasis on and that I offer to my clients when they want to begin working with a deity is to read and to study them beyond what you may find on the internet and beyond what you may, find on, and I'm always talking about this too, but Pinterest, a lot of people use Pinterest as like the primary source from where they're getting their information. But Pinterest is it's social media, right? It's not a hall of records or some place where you can actually go and get archaeological data, right? Or gnostic
Right.
data, right? So reading, and also reading with a lens of looking beyond the surface, looking beyond human made um tales, right? Beyond a human construct. That's a part of decolonizing it. And in addition to that, too, one of the slides that I was going to show to you all is looking at the land that these deities were worshipped, right? So Lilith is always depicted, she's always framed as being a white skinned woman with very red hair, right? Very long red hair. And that not even suggests, it is one of the biggest lies that's ever been told about her, not just her ancestry or her heritage, but also about the people who originally wrote about her, the people who prayed to her, who worshiped her, right? So, and one of my formulas that I use that you can find on my company website, Alchemia, Alchemage LLC, one of my formulas that I use is what I call my L4 method, right? It's the method that I use to decolonize and work with other clients too. And the first is language, right? So decolonizing how you approach spirituality by trying to unlearn the more Germanic or westernized ways that we call these deities, right? So Lilith, that's a Germanic name for her, right? It's a westernized English name. If we're going to decolonize it, we would speak her name in either Hebrew, or we would look at one of the original scripts that was used, either in cuneiform or ancient Akkadian, right? To really look
Mhm.
at not just one name for her, but many, right? She has many names, many different titles. And then the second way to decolonize spirituality is through land and land recognition, right? So again, like with Lilith, she comes from, or was spoken about from, the people who were originally in ancient Mesopotamia. That landmass, that location is close to where the ancient Cushites would have been too. And that is located in the what they call northern part of Africa, right? And it's also in that Middle Eastern region. I try not to refer to it as the Middle East because that's also Eurocentric and it's man-made, right? But if we
Oh, yeah.
look at that location, right, it's the land of the ancient Canaanites, right? That would be present day, you know, that would be present day Syria, it would be present day um what's the other region there? Just that middle region right there. So some may call it like
Morocco,
present
isn't that over there? Or
it would be present day Iraq and also Iran. So in that whole region, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
if you think about how the people originally looked before colonialism, these were not white-skinned people. White-skinned people are only biologically, archaeologically, anthropologically found in one area, and that's in Europe. That's it. That tiny little landmass, right? So that's also a part of the decolonizing process, and also unlearning a lot of the untruths about these really wonderful and powerful deities, you know? And it's also a way to give um, the sacred spirituality and the authenticity back to its original people, you know? And that's
Yeah.
really, really, really important. Yeah, that's super important. Just like with Medusa.
Yeah, so you basically what you're telling us is that Lilith has been whitewashed,
Yes,
basically,
ma'am.
to
Yes,
seem
ma'am.
like a figure that she completely is not. So it's
Yes.
a lot of misinformation out here
Lot.
surrounding her name.
Yeah, it's a lot of misinformation about her, in addition to like the depictions of her as a dark feminine goddess. I know that people are
Mhm.
throwing that term around a lot, and they have
Yes.
been in the last few years, like dark feminine goddess, and that if you work with her, you'll become like a sixth queen and all these things. And
Mhm.
that's not the whole story, and so it's she has been whitewashed, and she's also been turned into a commodity, for a lot of people, with an industry's intent for women to buy more products, more glamour based products, you right, like more things that are part of the
Yeah.
capitalist, you know what I mean, system. And so
Yeah.
she's been one of the most demonized goddesses. And that's all been
Yeah.
for a very specific purpose. Yeah, very specific purpose.
So, one of the things that I learned about Lilith while researching her is that, and I want to ask you this so you can expound
Yeah.
on this or expel what could be myth or, just reveal to us like the true facts. But one of the things that I researched is that she's like an advocate for women who may have been in domestic abuse
Mhm.
relationships and things like that, and
Yeah.
just speaking more to what you said about helping women to have a voice or to
Mhm.
not be victims, to actually be able to maybe
Yeah.
shed like a victim mindset and stand
Mhm. Mhm.
in their power, which I think is a beautiful thing. But will you say that's an accurate depiction of who Lilith is?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Again, these deities are energy systems, right? They are energetic cosmic intelligences, right? They're a divine intelligence. And so when you feel and when you call in, when you invoke her spirit or her essence, right? You will never be the same again. Like you will
Yeah.
speak out against any form of tyranny, either that's being done to you in your own, personal life, or if you see people that like family members, friends, coworkers, right? And then you'll also speak out about things on a more macro scale, like politics or, any of those things too. So yeah, when you start working with her, there's no turning
Yeah.
back, and it's the best thing, for people. I think particularly anyone, if they have been in any sort of domestic abuse situations, or whether it's physical, or if it's economic abuse, or if it's psychological, spiritual abuse, anything like that. When you work with her and you're very dedicated to your ascension, and there are many ways to do that, and one of the methods that I teach my clients, mostly my female clients, is how to call in these women, these divine goddesses, through your sacred womb, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of power in a woman's womb. And that's also a part of the demonization process of divine feminine goddesses and women, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Womb power is not just about, having children, right? It's not about that at all. It's about w- us and the way that we are physically and biologically. It's about how we are quite literally replicated, excuse me, after the cosmos, right? Every woman holds the keys to immortality, to health, to wellness, and also to attracting a lot of financial wealth and also creative power. So, both attracting it and also transmuting it or transforming it so that you then create more opportunities to create even more wealth, to generate even more financial prosperity and abundance. And so, yeah, Lilith is very powerful in teaching you how to do that, and essentially living life on your own terms, right?
Yeah.
Like, to break out of the mindset that you have to do for some submit to anyone, right? Not just a man, but submit to a system,
Hmm.
that is harming you or harming others. Yeah, I highly recommend anybody who's seeking to work with her,
Yeah.
because she's very powerful. Also, too, on a personal note, I remember this was back in like 2019. This was about the second time that I started my own personal research and working with Lilith. And it's so interesting because it kind of happened simultaneously. When I thought about her and she immediately came to me, I also then had this immediate thought that came into my head. And I said to myself, I was like, I want to learn Aramaic. And it was very interesting how that happened,
Wow.
like at the same time. It was really interesting. And I yeah, I again, I love learning, I love information, absorbing it and understanding the etymology of words and things like that too. So, yeah, she's also wonderful in that regard. She's an excellent teacher for women who are seeking to really like tap into that divine, like alchemical power. Some people call it witchy ways or whatever, but
Yeah.
she's amazing.
And I do have a question about Lilith and her origins. If you could give us a little bit
Yeah,
more background about where she originated from. I know you said the continent of Asia, and I know I mentioned Morocco,
Africa.
which is in North Africa off the
Yeah.
Mediterranean. But she originated in Asia, in the Middle East, as you said. You tell us more
She's
about that and the
so
origins
so
of
a-
her name, like
yeah,
her real name.
so actually Lilith, not Asia, but in Africa, or the continent known as Africa, right? Because that's
Okay.
not even the correct name for that continent either, right? But
You giving us
but
a
yeah, so
whole
she
education. I didn't know
listen,
that.
and that's why I say it's deep. Like it's really, really, really deep. Okay. Everything had a name and an essence before colonialism, you know, and it's so vital for us to excavate the truth and get back to what the land, what the people, what the languages themselves were actually called. One thing, real quick, because it connects, but one thing that I have learned in my extensive research is that I know many of you who are watching have probably heard of the Phoenicians, right? The Phoenicians is
Yes.
actually not the name of the people. The Phoenicians, that is a name. or a title that was given to them based on an industry in which they worked. So it was to describe this group of people who always wore the color purple. And Phoenicians is a Greek name, it's a bastardized name of those people. They were actually from Canaan, which is Canaan, right? So Phoenicians is a completely, where did it even
Yeah.
come
It's
from?
like,
From the
where did
Greeks.
that even that's
Yeah, like
confusing.
listen, I love Greek food, but the Greeks have really messed up a lot of they have messed up a lot, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, so so this connects with Lilith. So first with her name. So there are a couple of different working, not theories, but extensive pieces of research that a lot of people have attributed to her name. So one is Lilit, and that is the ancient Hebraic or Hebrew form and how to pronounce her name. And it really just taps into how they described her as a night wind or a howling or screeching owl, right? That was the name that they gave to her because they thought that when they heard, the screeching, the owls and things like that, they thought that it
Yeah,
was, they're like, oh, it's a Lilith or it's a Lilith, right? So that's
yeah.
one aspect of her name or one way to say her name. And then some of the others have been R. Lili, which is, from my research, ancient Akkadian.
Mhm.
And um, there are a couple of others. I know there's one that's called Lili Lili K or Lili Kake. There is a couple of different ways to say it. But what's interesting is that each of those descriptions, it means the wind or the sound of the wind. And also in many cultures, they attribute a spirit with the element of air or the wind. And that makes a
Ah,
lot of sense when you really think
okay.
about it on an alchemical level because in the terms of like the spirit, it is air, and that's how we receive information is
Right.
through communication, so divine communication, right? So it kind of makes sense that they would give her all of these names that mean air or something related to that, but that would be the more accurate way to say her name. But also in terms of where she originated or the people who originated, that used to worship her, first prayed to her, all of those things. So it's not Asia, it's actually from the continent of Africa in
Oh,
the
okay.
region, yeah, in the region of what we would call ancient Kemet or ancient Kush. So in that one little body of land where the ancient Kemetics, also known as the Egyptians, or the ancient Canaanites, also known as the Ki Anan, people in that whole region, right? Or what is called present day the Holy Land, you know? But all of that
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
continent of Africa. You see what I mean? So if you
Mhm.
think about the people who, how they looked, their phenotypical traits before the invasion from Europeans, how do you think they looked? You know,
Yeah. Probably
very
like a
deeply and deeply melanated too. And what's so fascinating is that the what they call Afro-Asiatic people, so the Berbers, a lot of those folks, they're still
I've heard
alive.
of the
There's
Berber. Yeah.
Yeah, the Berbers, they're still like they're here. They're not extinct, you know. So those groups, they're still here, and their phenotypical traits actually match the original people who identified or who first began speaking about Lilith or Lilith, R. Lilith. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
still here. And so it
Mm.
makes sense. So then again, going back to that thing that I mentioned before about how she's always illustrated or depicted as a white-skinned woman with very long red hair. Like that
So
makes
where
no
did that
sense.
even come from? Where did that
Girl, like how they do everything.
I have another question about Lilith,
Yeah,
and I'm so happy that you mentioned like the owl and the wind and trees and all of that because
yeah,
when you research her, that's one of the things that you come across is the
yeah.
reference between her and owls. It's like
Yep,
the
yep.
imagery for an owl is used in place of her.
It
And that's
is.
also the imagery I think that they give her when it talks about her and killing children and
Yes,
all of that
yes, they
sort of
do.
stuff. And I feel like when and you mentioned earlier too, like a good source online to get more accurate information, you said is Pinterest. So I just did you say it was Pinterest or that's a bad
N
source?
no, I was saying don't go on Pinterest.
Okay, okay. Because
Yeah,
you know
and
what I found is when you research things like this
mhm,
in general, you have to really be extensive and really go
you
down
do,
and read from many different references because
you do.
you have to kind of like eat the meat and spit out the bones, as they say, because you come
Yes.
across a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense or it isn't
Oh, yeah.
adding up, you know?
Yeah, there's so much misinformation on social media. So again, I do not use Pinterest as a sole source, right? And don't use YouTube, don't use TikTok, don't use any of these major, platforms, and don't use someone's blog either, because I see a lot of people doing that too. You know, the one of the most important things to do is to research beyond those platforms. And one of the best ways that you can do that is through scholarly journals, because a lot of those authors, they have master's degrees, PhDs in um, archaeology, in anthropology, right? And also in ancient occult or religious studies. So they've really taken the time to go through a lot of in-depth research. And also, it helps to understand like why, going back to you we're talking about the usage of the owl, right? And those
Mhm.
specific symbols to highlight Lilith. So owls are nocturnal, right? And if you think about how they always classified Lilith as like a night screeching owl and how she's a
Yes.
succubus that comes into the night and terrorizes men, that's why they attribute that to her. In addition to the fact that owls, on an alchemical or spiritual level, they're used as a totem for ancient communication or divine communication from an ancient deity or source, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's one of the reasons why they highlight owls. Owls are also predators, right? So that's another reason why they use owls in connection
Okay.
with her. It doesn't necessarily mean that like that's her 100%, but it's through the lens of like a human being trying to make sense of her primordial, immortal, ancient essence, right? And that's how we
Right.
use symbols as human beings. That's how we use symbols to make sense of things, right? Because if you think about a deity, they're very complex to us, you know? So we
Yes.
have to use, again, colors. We have to use names. We have to use titles and symbols, but when you are on the path of sacred spirituality, it's so important to not become fixed in that one idea. And I've seen it a lot where people will have very strong discussions. I mean, there was somebody in the comments. I mean, this person here, do you really believe in Adam and Eve, right? And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so even
Yeah.
asking that question, and daggone well, we're sitting here having a conversation, we're actually deconstructing it. No, we don't necessarily believe in them, but this is a part of the mythic tales and
Yes.
how human beings for hundreds of thousands of years have tried to make sense of the origins of time, you know? And when you allow yourself to not be fixed on one thing, that's a part of decolonizing sacred spirituality
Mhm.
and also decolonizing yourself, because as you move through your life and your career, your education, day to day, you also will not become fixed on what you think is one truth, right? There are endless amounts of truths,
There are many.
you know?
Yeah.
There are
2
many.
things can be true at once. I feel like for
And sometimes
so many
10.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes
So many
10.
things. Yes, you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to move forward, I
Yeah.
feel like I would like to talk about Medusa. I
I love
think
talking about her
Medusa's
too.
interesting. I have a lot of questions about her. Just
Yeah.
for on my research that I've done about her, I really haven't been able to find out like much information other than like the story of Greek mythology,
Mhm.
where I think she was it Zeus that essayed her or something
Poseidon.
like that?
Poseidon.
Poseidon.
Poseidon. Mhm. Yep.
Yeah,
Poseidon.
yeah. So if you could tell us more about like Medusa and her
Yeah.
origin story and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love just like talking about Lilith, I absolutely love talking about Medusa. I think that she's also, no, I know she's a very important divine goddess and figure for women, but also for other people too, and particularly for Black women. And the reason why I say that is because her origins did not begin in ancient Greece or Rome. She, like many of the figures from very ancient sacred spiritual systems, she was also hijacked and stolen by the Greeks and the Romans. And her truth has been perverted by them, right? So in to start in the Greek pantheon, that's how a lot of people know about Medusa, right? Is, she was once a beautiful maiden. She was sexually assaulted. She was raped by Poseidon in the temple of Athena because she was one of Athena's priestesses. And after she went to Athena for comfort and for justice, Athena turned her away and blamed her for her sexual assault, and then turned her into what they would call a gorgon or a monster, right? As she's classically portrayed as the body of a woman and then the tail of a snake, right? And also, when you gaze upon her, she will petrify you, she turns you to stone. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I've learned about the Greeks is that they are so fatalist and so dark when it comes to a lot of the ways that they describe their mythic tales, just in many regards. And I think it says a lot about the consciousness, the collective consciousness of a lot of Europeans and people of European descent too, because oftentimes they do think in black and white, right? You're either good or you're bad. It's either Mount Olympus or it's hell. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but surprisingly, Medusa existed hundreds of thousands of years before the Greeks or the Romans even knew about her. And she actually, in my very extensive research over the last several years, one of the things that I have loved learning about her the most is that the ancient, well, present day Libya, but the Berbers, remember we talked about them
Yeah.
earlier? And they are the Amazigh or the Imazigh people. They were actually praying
Northern
to a
Africa, right?
right in that northern African region.
Mhm.
They were actually praying to a Medusa much earlier, much earlier. And what's so fascinating is that she was not a monster. She's not a beast. She didn't turn people to stone or anything like that. And she did not have a story about her being raped either or sexually assaulted. There's none of that. There's none of that,
Just
right?
made up a terrible essay traumatic story. Just
Fanciful as it can get.
wow. Like,
and
what's the purpose of doing that, you know?
and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. So if you think about it, in this story that they have depicted, a woman has been sexually assaulted and she goes from maiden to monster, right? And you also have the piece in there about her being betrayed by a feminine deity who was supposed to protect her, Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom. She didn't
Yeah.
protect her, but she instead punished her for being sexually
Right.
assaulted. And so that has a dual purpose. One, it basically protects men and males in the Greek Roman or Greco Roman society, right, from not being held at fault when or if they commit that heinous crime, right? And then also, it justifies their actions towards other women, towards the sacred feminine, the land, and other things too, right? It justifies them being able to do that and then also not being, held liable at
Held
all.
accountable. Yeah.
Exactly. And it also it's a dual action sort of situation. What it also does, it gives the communities of people who hear about this woman who's a monster, it gives them license to treat her like an outsider too, right? So that's one of the whole reasons why the Greeks and the Romans came up with that story, but also why
Yeah.
they've been telling it and retelling it over and over and over again, right? It's a way to neurolinguistically hijack our emotions and how we see women, but also how we
Yeah.
see deities, and also how, again, because myths help us to make meaning of life and of things, right?
Right.
And if you see that and if you believe in those stories as they are without decolonizing them and looking beyond the surface, right? Well, then, it helps you to go about your day-to-day life and look at women as being monstrous, especially if they have a right or they're justified in their retribution or their anger. But in her ancient Libyan or Northern African form, she was worshipped, she was beloved, she was prayed to as a fertility goddess, not just with physical procreation, but also a goddess that they would pray to nourish the land, nourish their crops, right? And again, fertility is not just
Abundance.
the physical, yeah, it's not just a physical act of having children or anything like that. It's also about the rising of the Kundalini energy, right? So awakening, right? And that's sexual, is serpentine, it rises from the
Yeah.
base up, and that creates a lot more consciousness, a lot more a lot more awareness. And it also taps into the tantric processes as well, right? Like again, you have your not just your third eye open, but everything is open, right? You're open
Yeah.
to all of the cosmic intelligences, and all of these things, right? And she was also prayed to as a protector, right, by the ancient people as well. And so I know for me too, I had this really big question that kept coming up for me when I learned about the Greeks invading that area and stealing the Medusa or the Medusa figure, stealing her from ancient Libya, and then taking her back to Greece and Rome and constantly, I mean, essentially colonizing her story. And when you think
Yeah.
about the story, how it always goes when they
And
defeat Medusa,
monetizing it, as you mentioned earlier.
of course. And when you think about how they keep telling this story over and over again, what's the one, I want you to put into the comments, what is the one key figure or key act that they always do to defeat Medusa? I want y'all to put it in the comments because that was a question that kept coming up for me in my research of her.
That's a good one. That is a
Hmm.
really
Yeah, just think about how in
mirrors? Was mirrors did mirrors have something to do with that?
not exclusively, but
Okay.
sometimes they did use those. Yeah, what do you all think? What was the
Does it
act like if you think about the film, what is it, Percy Jackson and that the whole series, how do they
the
defeat
Greek stories,
Medusa?
yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a really good one, you guys. Like if anyone has any kind of feedback.
Yeah. So I'll just really quickly I'll share the sort of illumination that I had. And so, if we think about how she was originally a serpentine protector mother goddess in now present day Libya, right, with the Amazighs, the Berber people who are deeply melanated people, and she would have been a deeply melanated, dark black skin goddess. So the question is, how do um or how is Medusa always defeated when you look into or when you watch any of the classic films? How is she defeated? How do they take her down?
Oh, cut her head off.
There you go. There
That's
you
what
go.
you have to do to a snake. Because if you don't, it'll come back
Allegedly.
together.
But
Yeah.
with her, so with her, when I started thinking about and really meditating on the fact that she originated in Africa, right, with deeply melanated people. So she would have been a melanated divine deity, right? A divine mother
Mhm.
goddess.
Mhm. A
And thinking
black
about how
woman.
and what does the head possess, right? What does our heads
Our
possess?
crown.
Intelligence,
Or well, our brains. Yes. Yes.
critical thinking, and also to the snakes, the symbolism of the snakes emanating from her head. It's not that she actually had snakes coming from her head. No, that is a symbol of her sacred, cosmic, divine intelligence, right? Her ability to be very intuitive. It's and the snake too, just really quickly, the snake is very symbolic of awakening. If you think about the ancient pharaohs and how they always wore the is it pronounced the ujat or the uraeus right here at the front of their
Yes.
foreheads,
The
the crowns with a
cobra.
snake, the cobra,
Mhm.
exactly. That is a
Mhm.
symbol for awakening and also for protection. So the same is true for Medusa. If she has these tentacles of snakes growing from her head, that means that she is aware. She is quite literally the embodiment of divine feminine power and
Mhm.
also sacred wisdom and sacred secret information or occult knowledge that is only meant for her people. But if they cut off the head and they take it back to Europe and replicate it, that lie and that story over
Yeah.
and over again, yeah, it sounds to me like, this group of people, that's a practice in colonialism. That's what that sounds like to me, you know?
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
stealing her ancient wisdom, they're stealing her ancient secrets and using it for themselves. So that's another part of that too. And she is to be feared, right? When you gaze upon her because you will turn to stone. That's also, if you think about it, like if we go with the Greek or Greco-Roman story,
Mhm.
really sit with that and think about it. This is a woman who has been physically assaulted by Poseidon and also denied by
Gaslit by
Athena.
another woman.
And if you think about how people will shun you if you go through that experience, right?
Mhm.
And or anything when you are trying to tell your story, right? Well, then they don't want to look at her. And so that's why, it said, oh, if you look at her,
Oh, that's
you'll turn to
deep.
stone. You know what I mean? Like, and so
Mhm.
it's not that she will actually petrify you, although she should, but
Yeah.
it's really, you know what I mean? It's really about people not wanting to look at this woman who had something horrible happen to her because then you have to acknowledge it, right? So that goes into the sexism piece. That goes into the misogyny. That goes into the patriarchal structures that are trying to uphold the abuse of women or the abuse of the divine feminine too, so that's
Mhm.
really another way to look at that.
And
And
also, since
yeah.
since you mentioned that, and I'm so glad you circled back around to that because just
Hmm.
the brief story that you shared about Athena and Medusa, and
Yeah.
I feel like also, and how this story is not true, and probably someone of male persuasion made this
Yes.
up,
Yes.
and also the division that it causes just between women, because what subconsciously the moral
Yep.
of the story is, it is okay to essay a woman, you can get
Yep.
away with, and
Yep.
actually
Yep.
another
Yep.
woman will help you to
Yes.
not take accountability for violently, you
There.
know what I
That's it.
mean,
That's it.
attacking
That's
someone.
it. I'm telling you,
And
it's
that's okay to protect the abuser and
yep.
let the victim continue to be victimized, because even to tell, like you mentioned, takes a lot of courage to even
Yeah.
speak up and say that, and then the person does that to you. And when you look at,
Yeah.
just, I know it's a little bit off topic, but when you look at abusive, like abuse in homes, that's what
Yeah.
happens sometimes generationally. The abusers are protected, and you just got to
Yep.
stay away from Uncle such and such. If you have too many
Listen,
drinks, he might touch
it,
you.
it's so no, it's so deep. And again, that's why, like, I am one of the many reasons why I'm so very passionate about and committed to the work that I do through these myths. We human beings have been telling stories and have been writing stories since literally the beginning of time, right? It's a way for us to not only be entertained, but also to make sense of things, right? And so, that's why we've created deities like a sky deity, a sky mother, or a sky father, or
Mhm.
there are many different cultures, which I love. The research that I've done, many different cultures have identified a mother of the water, right? And we have Ye Maya, we have Mami Wata, we have
I was just
um
thinking that
Tiamat. Yeah, we
Makaret.
have we
Yeah.
have Tiamat. We have in the our walk-in traditions, there's Atabe. It's so many, right? It's so many mother deities, and the way that we use these stories and construct their identities or personalities, it helps us to make sense of their expansive
Yemoya.
power. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, my yacht, like literally all of them, right? And so because of that, we have to also really be careful about how we're telling the story or how we're telling the myth, and also what we are either adding to it or what we're leaving out. Because in, like, again, in the Medusa story, uh, that became popularized through Greco-Roman mythic traditions, they keep telling this story over and over and over again. There's a reason for that. And when
Yeah.
you also consider, and I think you touched on this before, when you really consider the way that um, they have capitalized on this over and over again, like literal financial compensation, there's a propagandized message here, right? There's an initiative that they want to take. And when you also ask the questions, what is the intent here? Why are they doing this? Then it helps you to really start to get those wheels turning, even more and more and
Yeah.
more. And then you look into how, they're replicating this in present day through politics,
Mhm.
and a lot of times these situations happen in your place of business or in your jobs, like the silencing of a staff member or a group of people who are
Mhm.
working, right? And it's the same story, right? You
Mhm.
harm an employee there,
Adult
and
bullying.
it's adult bullying. You have the gaslighting. You got the flying monkeys and the whole thing. And I got
That's
a
right.
lot of stories with that one on my own personal
Yeah.
experience. I'll
Yeah.
save it for another time. But when you but when you look at how those staff members, those employees are mistreated and harmed too, then they're ostracized and they're turned into an oddity or a monster, right? You really start to realize and understand, like, oh, I see, like, I get it. I see what they're doing. I see what the attempt
Mhm.
is to, again, craft a myth or to create a story about this person or about this human being that becomes demonized, right? Like we talked about in the beginning,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all a part of the same system. So again, what happens in the spirit happens in the material world too,
That's
and
right.
it's all connected. It's all connected.
And it's really to, I feel like, to cause division.
Oh,
It's like
absolutely.
horrible distractions that could ruin people's lives, but
Mhm.
that's simply what it's meant to do, is distract people from the truth. And I think when you
Yeah.
were giving us information about Medusa, and you mentioned that the colonizers like took the head
Yeah.
over to Greece
Yeah.
and left the body there, then to me that really stood out symbolically as, like, separating, like, I think about like the church from Christ, how that example that they give, it's like
Yeah.
separating people from their God or their source.
Yeah.
Because if you're lost spiritually, how can you reconnect back to source? And a
That's it.
huge thing about spirituality is understanding the world and your place in that world. So
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
your culture, your beliefs are hidden from you and then demonized, like we talked
Yep.
about, you see the satanic horns and the red man and the cowrie shell shaking in the
It,
background. And it's like
it's
you
all.
demonize their belief systems.
Yep.
You
Yep.
separate them from
You
their God. They cannot fight. And
at
not
all.
physical, but mental.
Yeah, mental, spiritual. Like when you sever someone from their ancient spiritual wisdom, that's the perfect way to colonize someone. It is quite literally severing their head off of their body because the head is where your intelligence is, right? It's also where your memory is stored from your ancestors, from your past lives, right? And I'm just like, yeah, that's why they keep showing that over and over again. You know what I mean? Like they want you to be severed from your truth. They want
Yeah.
also too, if you sever the head, you can no longer speak. So they sever your voice from you too. You know?
Mm.
They just snatch it right out of you, so you
And to
can't
be
fight back.
separate from God is to be separate from yourself.
To be separate from yourself 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredible. And the thing that I encourage women to do, I mean men too, but particularly for women who are on their path of sacred spirituality and also divine feminine spirituality, if you work with Medusa, she will unveil a lot to you, right? Again,
Yeah.
and I always encourage my clients, my customers, make sure that you study and read on these deities first. And also, when you first start to work with them ritualistically or spiritually, make sure that you don't speak to them in a way where it is like colloquial or where it's disrespectful. Or again, like the point that I mentioned before, try to free your mind from a limiting perspective on their history or their symbolism, right? They're not just one way, they are many ways, you know? And when you work with her, a lot of women will find, just like with Lilith, you have this energetic surge that returns to you. You remember your power, you remember your essence, and she's a wonderful teacher if you are seeking to learn how to create like your own healing rituals for yourself, and
Yeah.
also to create, like, I know a lot of women love to do like certain like oils or potions, or things like that, if they're trying
Yeah.
to really connect with
Teas and
spirit.
things like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like anything pertaining to herbalism or anything. She's incredible for that too. She's
Yeah.
really fantastic. Yeah, she's remarkable, and she is extremely protective too. Again, she's a protector. Lilith is a protector. Quite literally, all of the goddesses, they're extraordinary protectors. And
Yeah.
in this current climate that we're in this era, I think it's so important for women to really start to call on the divine feminine maternal intelligence, because they're ferocious, they're fierce. Like, have you ever seen a mama bear? Like a real
Yeah.
bear protecting her
Yeah.
cubs? Have you seen a lioness or a jaguar? They are have you seen a mother giraffe? Like a
Yeah.
mother horse?
Yeah.
They're not
They're
demure, they're
not
not
quiet.
quiet, they are wild. And that's how human women should be too, you know?
Yeah, for
So yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
Okay, so we have, and I do have some questions that I would like to ask you at the end that you started to hit on a couple times, and that's
Yeah.
basically how to work with the goddess, how to know
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
goddess to work with, and exactly
Yeah.
what does that mean to do, because we are in is it monotheism? So it's like with
Yeah.
religion, it's
Yeah.
like one God. So to even speak about more than one deity
Yeah.
is mind blowing for some people
I
because
know.
the openness isn't there. It's a lot of bans there, a lot of restrictions, a
Yeah.
lot of limitations as far as
Yeah.
how people view this type of thing. So I do have questions for that, and I don't want to
Yeah.
hold you too much longer. I know we
No,
have
you're good.
one more god to go to is Hades.
Hades. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So with Hades, I don't have too much information about Hades, but just from what I know from hearing about,
Hmm.
obviously Hades is hell. That's
Allegedly.
what that's talking.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, that's hell. You know what I mean? So can
Yeah.
you tell us more about Hades and again his origin stories and who he is and his real
Yeah.
name? And Medusa,
Absolutely.
her real name, is it really Medusa?
So I'm still trying to access a lot more ancient records and a lot of like archaeological records and things like that about what her actual name would have been during that very ancient time period with the ancient Berbers, the Amazighs. And it's still something that I'm accessing right now. So I still just call her either Medusa or Medeusa. And I'm just asking her when I commune with her, reveal to me what your other names are, and also point me in the right direction. And I mean, she's connected me with some marvelous and really wonderful information in years past. And so I know at the right time, she's also going to reveal to me what her many ancient names are too, beyond the Greco Roman name. But yeah,
For
Medusa is
sure.
totally good to call her. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Hades.
Oh gosh. Hades is and has been one of the most I don't want to say surprising or shocking, but I love learning about the truth. And so
Absolutely.
okay, so he comes, many people will know, like you said before, like, oh, Hades is hell. No, that is the association, right? And in the Greek pantheon, Greco-Roman pantheon, his name in Greek is actually Adis, right? So it's Adis. And um, he became synonymous again in the mythic story of being the guardian of hell, right? Or the guardian
Yeah.
of what they call the underworld, right? And
Yes.
the under yeah, so the underworld in the Greco-Roman pantheon is not only a like hell, it's a place where human souls go into transition. And what's so interesting again in the way that the Greeks
Like
and the Romans,
purgatory?
somewhat, some kind of similar
Something.
because
Okay.
the underworld in the Greek mythic traditional stories, it's always very desolate. It's dark, it's gloomy, it's a place to be feared, right? And there's no liveliness, right? There's nothing that's there. And that's how the Greeks and the Romans have always portrayed it, right? And so if you think about any, story that you've ever seen, any film or television show where Hades, Hades is there, he's always feared, right? He's always, seen as like having very white, gray skin. Like they try to avoid him as much as possible. But what is so interesting about Hades or Hades is that there is another name that not a lot of people know about him, and it means the total opposite. And his name is the wealthy one or the giver of wealth. And in Greek, the name is actually pronounced Pluton or Pluti or Plutus. And that's basically just translates to the wealthy one or the giver of wealth, the wealth giver. And in my research, a long time ago, when I really started to put the pieces together, I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And so the reason why they call him the wealthy one is because he represents the wealth and also hidden wealth that's found underground, right? So we're talking about precious metals.
Oh,
We're
yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
we're talking about jewels that are very rare, right? And we're also talking about the richness of the soil, right? And the soil being black, so the black earth, which is very abundant. It has fecundity or it has a lot of fertility, right? And that's very rich. And so, excuse me, ancient societies would pray to him, excuse me, as the wealthy one because they wanted their crops to flourish, right? And they would call him as the giver of wealth, for example, make my crops grow in abundance, right? Or
Mhm.
aid me in being able to go into the town square and contribute to commerce so I could get money in return for my rich crops and the fruitful abundance and all these things too. So Hades is not, or Hades, Hades, he's not as scary as he's been portrayed or made to believe. And in some mythic stories, they also refer to him as like the devil, right? But he's not a devilish character. And I've also spiritually worked with him too. And one of the most incredible, I would say, personal experiences that I have had with him is how he refines you. Like, excuse me, he refines your speech, he refines on an energetic level, right? He also refines your energy and aligns you with a lot of wealth opportunities, right? And so then you have to ask the question, well, why have they wanted to keep us away from Addis all these years? Well,
Okay, quick interjection because with you
yeah.
saying this, it just makes me think about how we hear that phrase, making quote unquote making a deal with the devil. You know, that's what it's
Yep,
giving. You know what I
yep,
mean?
yep.
It's
That
like people
and that's
are
a
so wrong.
and that's a part of that too. That's a
That's
really great
diabolical.
connection there too. That's a great
Yeah.
connection. And yeah, it when you really sit back and you think about how it's like, oh, so he has this nice, abundant, giving quality to him where he'll give you wealth. He will also help you to find or locate hidden wealth, right? It might not be like a chest full of gold or something like that. Thank you. It might not be like a chest full of gold or something, but in this modern age, think about the hidden wealth of the virtual economy, right?
Mm.
Or the hidden wealth in certain opportunities in terms of networking with the right people, collaboration, like what
Right,
we're doing,
right. Yeah.
and other hidden wealth opportunities. If someone owns a home or you own land, he may help you to find a hidden clause or hidden
Wow.
policies that help you to increase and maximize your financial wealth, right? Or your abundance or your financial security, right? And in my own personal experience, he has been incredible, and
Yeah.
I yeah, and I think that that's so important to again, go beyond the veneer or go beyond the surface and to really decolonize um, these stories and these titles that have been given to these individuals too, right? And so when you really sit back and ask yourself, so have they been trying to keep us away from him all these years because do they want to keep us poor?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Like if you
Yes.
because again, a demon is a bastardized, Christianized version or way to keep you away from the original, the correct definition, which is a divine intelligence, a supernatural intelligence, or a genius and a benevolent
Mm.
figure, a benevolent spirit. You think they want us tapping into that kind of energy? You know, like,
No,
of
absolutely
course they
not.
don't. Of course they don't
Not
want us
for many
because they don't.
people.
I mean, think about it. Like, they would not want you to know how to cure yourself because then that means that you don't have to go to a doctor or
That's
hospital, right?
right.
It
That's
means that you know
right.
how to cure others, and then they're, working with your energy, and they're now coming to you for ancient mystical information, right? They don't want you to know how to find hidden wealth or to locate that on your own. No, they want you to go and continue to tap into credit cards and all this other type of stuff, you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
essentially they don't want you to be self-sustaining. And like with the goddesses Lilith or Lilith and also Medusa, they don't want you to stand up for yourself, right? Because if you do, you're going to be shunned. You're going to be called a succubus, right? You're going to be called
Yes.
a Medusa Gorgon, a monster, right? They don't want you to do that.
Mhm.
And so that for me is extremely incredible
Judged
because
and
we,
then isolated, like
yeah,
from the
yeah,
group, the oddball out, and people don't want that. Nowadays,
no, they don't.
people, they would need to be in groups. But that's
And that's
human
been
nature too.
and that's been a part of the plot for to get people to conform for
Hmm.
a long time, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you spoke about this before too, like with monotheism. That's essentially a very new practice because historically speaking, in a very ancient
Yes.
context,
Yes.
most indigenous cultures around the world, here in the Americas, on the continent of Africa, in many different what we now call Asian cultures, also in the like in the British Isles, from Celtic mythology too, all of these people had multiple deities that they prayed to, every single one of them. And I remember being a very young child, and I always had this natural connection to and attraction to multiple deities. Like, oh, I want to learn about that. Oh, I want to learn about that too. It just felt
Yeah.
right. It felt natural. And yeah, I definitely grew up in a Christian, upbringing, but I'm grateful that it wasn't abusive in the church, in my experience. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for me, I still feel like I had an opportunity to still be curious about and still learn and explore. But yeah, monotheism is, as we see, it's very harmful to people because
Yeah.
again, they force you to believe that there's only one way, there's only one belief system, and that's
Hmm.
not true.
And we
Like,
all have to be the same. That's another
yeah, like
thing.
what
You
is
got to be
that?
like everybody else.
Like
It's the
everybody else.
suburb that you go to with all the cookie cutter houses, you know, all look
That's
just
so true.
alike.
Yeah, it's just like, but as human beings, we're not one way. We're not linear. We're not, these soul like little entities that only believe in one thing. Right, exactly. Conformity.
That's right.
Conformity
That's right.
conformity actually kills people. And it kills people slowly. It
Shout
kills
out
people
to Silent
inside.
Dancer, good
Yeah,
supporter
shout
of the
out to her.
channel.
Like, yeah, conformity is very harmful. And when people do conform, they lose themselves, and we shouldn't conform to anything. And if it's something that you feel is not aligned with you, just don't do it,
Yeah.
like don't, and stand in that truth for you, like it's certain things that I'm just like, I would never.
And
But
Lilith
that's,
can help with that if you
yes,
feel like you
yes,
don't have the ability. to stand
exactly.
for what it is that you believe in. You know what I
And
mean?
just one of the things, because I know you asked before, like, how do you start working with these deities? And
Yes.
I will say that, like, if you don't know where to start, and as a beginner, right? One of the things that I highly recommend, again, so it's two steps, right? One, I always recommend do your extensive research. And the reason for that is because when a deity sees that you have taken the time to research them and to learn more about their more ancient truths beyond colonialism, they take favor on that. It shows them that you're actually ready and you're committed to a lifelong path of spiritual ascension. So then that means that they're going to come to you a little bit more frequently to show you because they know that you're ready, right? And then the second thing, the purpose in learning about them is again so that you can weed out the misinformation that really matriculates a lot online. And thank you so much, Haywood Pittman, for proving our point. I really appreciate you putting a Bible verse in here. You are fantastic. I see we got a fan in the building.
I hope you took something away from this, Haywood, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you boosting these views, so we really appreciate you for that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but also in addition to that too, one of the so after you take time to really learn about these deities, to really study them, the second thing that I would do is to do to do what is called an embodiment practice, and I have many of these that I offer to my clients. But a sacred embodiment practice, honestly, the one thing that you can do is to just connect with your body. For women, I always have practices that incorporate your womb, right? So focusing on your womb and invoking or calling in a divine feminine intelligence. You can also invoke divine masculine intelligences too. But if you just do a simple practice like put your hand over your heart and right on your stomach, or for women on your womb, and if you just breathe in very deeply, in and out, in and out, in and out, and you just call on them, like for example, with Lilith, if you say, Great Mother Lilith, I call thee. Please come to me and show me the path, show me the way, and protect me, be gentle with me, right? That's the perfect first step if you are a beginner.
That's
I
beautiful.
know a lot of times, thank you. Yeah, it's something that has really helped me a lot. I
I
know,
like the way you
well,
said that. Be gentle with me, protect me. I
yeah, be
love it.
gentle with me and protect me. Sometimes, and again, it's about how you approach this path. I've known some folks who have gone in a little bit too aggressive, and they've had to be reminded of their place, of their
Yeah,
position. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Again,
yeah.
and one of the things that I would also say too is try to stay away from calling a divine, ancient, a primordial deity like that's my girl, that's my boy. No, they're not human. You know, like that's
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
calling them
Honor,
like,
respect.
yeah, this is about sacred veneration, right? And you don't want to say like Hecate, that's my girl. And I work with Hecate a lot.
Yeah,
I would never
yeah,
say that.
yes,
But
yeah.
you
But
know, and so that's,
we would feel that, right? Like once you began
yeah.
to do that, you would
Oh yeah.
feel that that would be wrong, right? To
I
address.
I would I would I would hope so. I would hope that people are so connected with their bodies, their intuition, but also connected with that deity that they work with, where they would know like maybe I need to kind of pull it back a little bit, or to maybe
Right.
I should rethink this. Or sometimes that's just the journey that that person has to go through so that they can learn.
So they can
But
learn. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that that's important too. But one of the things that when I started on my own personal path 16 years ago, I didn't have a community of people, and none of my friends at the time were in this reality at all. So I've
Yeah.
learned a lot through being self-taught and also just a lot of active study. In addition to, I in 2015 I received a grant from the Puffin Foundation to do my first um, goddess project, and it was a documentary based project as well as a photography based project. And I wanted to take the aspects of goddess archetypal work and imagery and then apply that into a modern context, right? So I just have kind of been creating like my own path with this. And one of
Yeah.
the things that I wished I had known earlier in my journey is that you don't need all those extra candles. You don't need like all of the accoutrement or whatever the phrase is. Like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need you don't need all of that stuff. Those are but
Yeah.
a mere method. It's a tool, it's a conduit to help you channel. But the only thing, the one thing that you need is your body. And the reason I say that too is because most of the tools that people use, candles, herbs, roots, things like that, those are rooted in alchemy, right? So earth, air, fire, water, and then you have aether or spirit. Well, our human bodies, we're all that, right? You have the breath in your lungs and also the air, like I spoke about before. Air is communication, right? So divine communication. Well, you have that. And if you know how to breathe properly, especially what I teach women is how to connect with and breathe through your womb, that's air. So that's one part of alchemy. And then if you look into earth, that's your flesh, that's your body, you know? If you look into water, it's your tears, right?
Mm.
And I know that a few people have said like I feel so emotional, I want to cry during my rituals, and you should. One, because it's a good release for you, but also your tears, that's your vital, a part of your vital essence, right? Your tears are going to help you with that emotion that you feel. It's going to heighten your experience when you're in that ritual with that divine mother deity or divine father deity. It's very potent. And then with fire, again, my default is rage and anger when I see a lot of
Which I think is
injustices going on.
beautiful how you channel it. And I
Oh,
look forward to talking
ooh,
about your handbags at the end because
yes.
I like it. I think it's so beautiful. But go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Channel
Thank
that
you.
rage. And you know what? I appreciate that you're being real about that. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah,
The
yeah,
fact that you have anger or,
oh yeah, yeah.
passion,
I
for
do. I
injustice
do.
and you channel it in a positive way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I won't lie, it took me a while to understand I need to channel this in a healthier and
Mhm.
more productive way. And when I first learned how to do that, again, it was 16 years ago, so 2010, and I started just doing these like online meditation challenges. And then I started going, I was in DC at the time, and I started going to this Shambhala meditation center that was not too far from my house. And I started learning about just the sacred practice of
What's
mindfulness and
Shambhala?
mindfulness. Shambhala, yeah, it's a subset or it's a practice of Buddhism where it's about loving kindness. And so I was going to their classes. I purchased, the books, and I was just learning and I was studying. And also, it teaches you about again how to breathe properly and your physiological, your biological connection with your spine and all these things. But it really focused on loving kindness and also compassion. And starting experiencing that for yourself and from yourself too, right? We'll have compassion for other people, but sometimes our experiences as humans, we kind of lack that sometimes. So it was during this entire experience where I really started to learn how to transmute or to direct the anger that I felt in a creative way. And that was how I started my first company, the Unlearning Project, because I was pissed off just enough that I was like, I got to do something about all of it. And then
You know what?
I
I think it
channeled,
was real quick. I think it was Candy
yeah,
Boris. I heard her say this like a really long time ago, but she said, you
yeah.
know what? Every time somebody makes her upset, she said, you know what I do? I make a check.
Listen, I'm telling you, like it is, and that's
Oh,
one of
dude.
the most powerful. I'm telling you, like, and it's divine alchemy, it's spiritual alchemy, knowing how to redirect and to channel all of the emotions that you feel into a creative context, right? So
Mhm.
again, rage being the default, most people will go out, they want to be violent or they start cussing or they want to be destructive in some kind of way, right?
I'm guilty with the
And
cursing one. I'm working on
oh, me too. Like y'all have no idea. It's bad sometimes.
that.
It's real bad. It's real bad. But then I learned, I'm like, okay, how are we
Yeah.
gonna be productive? But
Yeah.
um but yeah, and then just learning how to channel it in a creative and also a productive context so that you benefit in the end, and also asking yourself, how can I benefit society, how can I support society in some kind of way? And yeah, I mean, I'm always honest, like, yeah, rage is the default for me. And
Right.
but it's not just like a selfish kind of rage. It's more so like, look at the state of the world. Look what's happening to children. Look at what's happening in this context. And it's like all these things. I'm just like, I have to do something about this. So I started my first company, the Unlearning Project LLC. I wrote a book. I did the media goddess project that I did, and then I did a web series, and then that turned
That's
into
so
this company too.
awesome.
And it's like, how much more pissed off can I get? What else can I do?
Right. Like that's working for me.
What else
Yeah.
can I do?
Right. Right.
and and then
Absolutely.
also too, to go back to the handbag. So which I had a photo of it and everything, but I'll maybe put something in the comments or something to connect people with it. But this was this year will be 3 years ago. Actually, I was having a conversation with my sister who is watching, my middle sister. And she was telling me about, so this was August 2023, and she was telling me about this some video or something where this person was talking very negatively about who they call cis women. And this person is
Mhm.
a transgendered woman, so male to female, and or man to woman. And the language that this person was using, when I saw this video and heard the words that they were saying, yeah, I felt
It's
that
terrible.
very deeply,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was just like, what is this? I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, what is this conversation? What are these words?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was again, just I was pissed off just enough where I was like, I'm gonna use this to celebrate women and our abundant, quite literal cosmic feminine power. And so I
Yeah.
started sketching and I started painting and just doing a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, nobody would even be here without women. Y'all, and that's all that I was like thinking about. And I was like, we
Yeah.
wouldn't even have a chronological system of time. There would be no calendar, there would be no clocks, right? There would be nothing if it wasn't
There
for
would be
us.
no
And
planet.
there would be nothing. Like, also, there would
Yeah.
be no systems of government, there would be no politics, there would be no educational universities, there would be nothing without us. And so I was
Yeah.
feeling all this rage and doing my typical I'm mad as H, type of thing. And
Mhm.
I started channeling that. And I thought to myself, how can I
That's
visually
good dialogue one
showcase?
create.
I got to be comfortable with being, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And learning how to get rich off of people pissing you off. you
Basically.
know? And also at the same time changing or transforming a negative situation into a positive one. And yeah, for me, I was like, I'm gonna celebrate women in a visual way that also harnesses the power of fashion and textiles and how we adorn ourselves every single day to continue to celebrate women. And so that's where the handbag, the Luna handbag from the creatrix Our Blood is Life came about, because I was upset
Which
at
is
what was
very
being said
beautiful.
about. Thank you
Story and
so
bag.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's one of my favorite pieces, personally, to be honest.
Very
But
beautiful.
it's a piece that I dedicated this, and I have dedicated it to women. I want women to understand and to celebrate our power, our connection to the moon, the cycles of the moon, and the fact that if it were not for our blood and our monthly cycles, nobody would be here, you know?
That's right.
And I don't, excuse me, I don't really understand, and I don't want to understand, but I don't understand the constant attacks from groups who have been consistently harmed and abused and oppressed. I don't understand how you can then try to oppress a group of people who are responsible for you even taking a breath, you know? And
Yeah.
one of the things that my sister shared with me is that they call women's, I don't know if I can get too explicit on here. I hope not. It's not sexual or anything, but they will call a woman's anatomy a
Hmm.
bonus hole. And I'm like, how can it be a
Oh,
bonus
okay,
when it's,
got you.
you know? And I'm just like,
Yeah,
so that was a part of the fire from the gods that was just rising up in me.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
so I just said, I have to celebrate women in a beautiful way. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that you
Absolutely.
connected me with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have one more question for you. So
Yeah.
you did go over how to work with the goddess, but how
Hmm.
would someone go about figuring out which goddess to work with, why to
That's a great
work with
question.
them?
Yeah.
And because we did speak about Hades, which is a masculine deity, a
Yeah.
god, what would
Yeah.
be a circumstance? I know this is very loaded. I actually
No,
asked
it's
you about
good.
3 questions,
Yeah.
but what would be a circumstance in which, like, a feminine energy would work with a masculine deity, or vice
Yeah.
versa?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to answer that part first. What would be the circumstance that a woman or feminine energy would work with a masculine? So I work with a lot of masculine deities. I've worked with Adis or Hades, Papa Legba. I've worked with Belial or Belial, Clawneck. Oh my God, so many of them. And one of the reasons I think that a lot of women should and can work with a masculine deity is if you are seeking more material action, right? And what I mean by that is, so if we look at masculine energy, not gender, but masculine energy, that represents taking the action that you've received in the feminine and then actually like putting down a foundation to that, right? So if you are starting a business and you want to learn or to you want to set down like the foundation and the practical steps, that is an excellent way that you can sort of invite or invoke a masculine deity like Adis or Papa Legba to remove obstacles from your path, things like that. That's one of the, I personally think, one of the key motivators why a woman would begin working with a masculine deity. In addition to that, they are also very protective too. Very, very protective. And
Would they
um,
be protective in different ways? Would you say the way a goddess would protect, would it be different from the way a god would protect?
um, not
Or
there's really not, in my experience, there hasn't really been a vast difference. I will say that in working with goddesses, I have received both the intuitive inspiration and protection that way. It's been heightened by working with the feminine energy as well as the physical protection too. And with more of the masculine deities, I for me in my experience, I've just received like okay, so when I have been traveling for work and like going out of the country, things like that, when I have called on masculine deities, for me, I feel like it shows up with the people who don't come up to me, if that makes sense. It's kind of like
okay.
I have their masculine energy around me, and so certain people, like certain men, they won't even bother to like come over and try to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very yeah, it's like a
Divine protection,
fatherly
that's what I call it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a fatherly kind of protection where it's kind of like, don't even come over here to my daughter. You know, like
Gotcha.
that's been my
Yes,
experience.
yes, yes.
But yeah, I think that if a woman is interested in working with, but also learning from a masculine deity, I really, really think that it's important, again, just like you would with a goddess. It's important to learn about their ancient cultures, the pantheon, learn about their symbolisms and the meanings behind that, and try to understand how to approach them as much as possible before you start to conduct rituals with them, invoking their power, things like that, right? Again, when you do that first initial step, that shows them, okay, they're actually serious about their progressive or continual spiritual ascension, you know? And I think that
Right.
that's really important, like, don't go downloading rituals off the internet. I'm telling y'all, that's so dangerous. Like,
Yeah.
you because you don't know the types of people or the state of their minds when they put these rituals together. You know what I mean? She said she don't
Yeah,
want to
that's
learn nothing from a
you.
man. I mean, I get that too, you know. But yeah, like, don't download these rituals or even these sigils from the internet, because you don't know the state of the mind, the state of the psyche, or also
Right.
the intent of the people who put it up. The internet is democratized, so anybody can put up anything at any time,
That's
right? But
right.
it doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's been vetted or that it comes from a reliable source. And that is because you don't know what you're invoking. You don't know what you're calling into your house. You
Yeah.
download a ritual off the internet, next thing you know, the roof caved in. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Like, oh my
or
God.
next thing you know, you have this weird craving for, like, I don't know, chitlins or something, and it's just like you don't even eat chitlins. It is. I know that's so
Right,
random, but
right, right. Something you don't want.
something you do not want to tap into,
Yeah.
and here you are downloading it and thinking like, oh yeah, I'm about to change my life. Yeah, you are, but not in a good way.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
it's working with male deities it's if you want it to be. And if you are seeking that, it is a very beautiful and abundant experience too. And one of the benefits is that when you work with both a goddess and a god, or a divine feminine and a divine masculine, that's the perfect harmony between the two, right? It's very potent. It helps to accelerate your journey, your experience, and the fruits of your labor and your ability to attract too. So, but again, like, some folks may not want to work with any male deities. I totally get
Yeah,
that too.
yeah,
Totally get
for
that.
sure.
Yeah, the difference is that they're not men. They are ancient. They are a divine intelligence and a cosmic spiritual force. But from men, like earthly men, I get it.
Yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure. And I like the
Yeah,
way
I
you
agree.
described masculine energy, which I would assume it would
Yeah,
be like the same expression for the feminine, being that
yeah, for
it's
sure.
just an energy and not a sexual
Yeah,
orientation or a sexual.
yeah, yeah. It's not gender per se, but also it's not, another really important thing. It's not personality either. And I think a lot of times in my research and my experiences working with a lot of people is they will unfortunately attribute human qualities to an ancient entity or a supernatural cosmic being. And again, that will really limit you in your day-to-day experiences, also in your mindset. And again, as we've been talking about, decolonizing sacred spirituality, it's not only about decolonizing racism or sexism or classism. It's also about decolonizing the limitations that have been put on us, and then how we continue to live in
That's
a
it.
limited frame of mind. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Like, that's also because spirituality is about liberation, right? It's about freedom. It's about freeing us
Yes,
from limits, right? And so when you think in that regard and when you approach everything in that way, well, then you're free. You can do quite literally anything,
that's
within
right.
reason. But yeah, you can do anything,
Yeah.
and you're not tied down by human made concepts, right? Like there's not
Yeah,
one way to do anything. There are a million ways to do it
that's
successfully.
right.
So yeah.
And then you
And
have
then
a
the
huge pantheon to choose different deities who align with whatever your flavor, or your style, or
yes.
your desire is, right?
Yeah, and it's I know I shared this in one of my earlier TikToks or maybe a couple, but in my long-standing research, history, and practice of working with Hecate or Ekati, she has been one of the most amazing deities who has connected me with a lot of different deities across pantheons. So in
Mm.
my workings with her, I've worked with and I'm doing a lot of extensive research on the Mesoamerican deities too, and that entire pantheon. And it's
Oh,
incredible. It's really wonderful, you know. Um, and again, allowing yourself to be fluid like water, which is a divinely feminine energy system and alchemy. When you're fluid, that means you're receptive, right? You're more receptive to all of the things that can and will benefit you in your life and your spiritual practice. And again, like we said in the beginning, everything starts in the spiritual, right? So when you're fluid in your spirit, that means that you're going to be a lot more receptive in your mundane or physical reality. So when you are contemplating, how can I get more financially free? Well, if you have a fluid spiritual practice, that means that when certain opportunities show up, you're also going to be fluid in how you receive them too, you know,
mm,
and how you're connected with like, oh, I think that this is a sign, this is a symbol for me to tap into this opportunity, you know, or to create an opportunity where there was none prior to, you know. So that's
yeah.
again another benefit of working with a lot of different deities. They all have incredible, powerful, ancient wisdoms to share with you. And yeah, I mean it's a wonderful experience. And I know you had another question too. How should someone know, or how will they know which deity to work with, which goddess to work with? Um, so I speak about this a lot, and the key sign, the key sign is when you are constantly receiving the same symbols, the same messages of a deity's name, their imagery, their likeness, iconography, things like that. If you're seeing it all the time, especially
Yeah.
in a short window of time, that is them communicating with you that
Mm.
they want to work with you. It's time they want to help you. They want to assist you and support you on your journey. And also that you will have a great experience of learning from them and working with them too. And a second one that I've spoken about before too is if there's a deity that you feel a very strong pull to work with or an interest in, that's the absolute
Okay.
biggest sign. Like you just it's like you just feel like I have to work with them. I have to research them. I have to begin my own
Yeah.
study. That's a big sign too, because
Okay, yeah.
magnetism, you know, that comes from our bodies as well, right? Like our hearts, our physical heart muscle organ, that has more magnetism than anything, right? And if we are, hello, if we are
Hi,
tapping into our
Kayla.
bodies, and if we're doing embodiment based practices, well, if your heart is super magnetic, that means that it's pulling the right information to you, right? In a frequency, scientific, quantum level sort of reality. So if
Yeah.
you feel like, man, I gotta work with this goddess. I gotta learn from this masculine deity, or I have to learn more about the symbolism of this animal totem, right? I am very big also on understanding and working with animal totems because for me in
I don't know
my
much about that at all.
oh my gosh, it's really fantastic. I led a workshop 2 weeks ago? Oh, it was on May the 16th on a Saturday, and I led a workshop with several women who were in attendance, and it was focused on the theme of mythologize your story. And this was particularly focused on one of the four pillars of sacred mythic identity, or creating your own mythic identity. And I went into depths about how to use and work with animal totems or animal spirit guides, right? And in my own personal um, journey and experience over the last 16 years, there have been so many animals that have shown up to me in dreams and in my waking life too, day to day. And when I really started to understand what they represent on an elemental, spiritual, alchemical level, that also opened up a world of opportunities for me too, to really, in a lot of Mesoamerican traditions, they will say that you have to learn from an animal's spiritual medicine. So, for example, the serpent, the snake, I've spoken about that a lot. That was actually one of my first spiritual initiators that really, for the last I don't know how many years now, really at the beginning of my 16-year journey, that really opened me up psychically to go along on this path. And it was a serpent. And never once did I feel like it was evil. It didn't feel like, the serpent was
Yeah.
coming to, commit harm to me or anything like that. And there have been
Yeah.
a lot of others too. So, black cats or cats in general. Also, if you see chickens, if you see a fox, if you see a panther, like all of the animals are a part of the same spiritual divine intelligence, just like us. And when you see them constantly showing up, or if you see certain colors that show up all the time, day to day for you, that's information. Those are symbols, those are signs, right? And when you allow yourself again to be fluid, to connect with it, to tap into it, well,
Right.
now you're really on that sacred path of like, okay, let me look into this. That's your own personal shamanic practice,
Mm.
and yeah, it's beautiful when you open up to it, and all of it comes from the sacred divine mother, the one who birthed the stars and the galaxies and all the things into existence. It all goes back to the sacred feminine every single time. I've always
Yeah.
been led right back to her every single time in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
company, in my research, in personal realities when I work with clients. It all goes back to the divine feminine every single time. So,
Well,
yep.
if you don't mind, before we wrap up, I have one more thing, but
Yeah.
before we wrap up, do you mind doing cute? Like any questions, like if anyone has a question, if they do?
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things I wanted to hit on really quick, if you don't mind,
Oh,
is
definitely.
earlier you
Yeah, sure.
mentioned dark feminine energy. And
Oh, yeah, the dark feminine. Yeah.
that's something I've mentioned, but I say it in a way where it's like tapping into those aspects of yourself that may not be like socially acceptable.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and looking at those things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And
The
either
shadow.
the shadow and
Yep.
embracing that or expelling it, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
I
integrating that energy,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah, I absolutely believe wholeheartedly that we have to embrace both, right? There can be no light without a shadow and no shadow without light. And the thing that I, wish that more people would do when they are on their spiritual journeys is again, when we spoke about the divine feminine or sorry, the dark
And shout out
divine
to
feminine earlier.
Tehudi. I'm sorry, I said shout out to Tehudi.
Tell new
And shout out to Silent Dancer. Silent Dancer mentioned Ganesh and that you feeling pulled
hmm
towards working with Ganesh and also mentioned Tehudi as well. I apologize, JR. You go
definitely.
ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. Um, but yeah, so um what was I saying? I forgot. Hold on, let me go back to it.
I got distracted too, but we were talking
Yeah.
about
Oh,
the
the
dark
dark
feminine
the
energy.
yeah, the dark divine feminine. So one of the things that I just want women to remember, or anyone if you're working with a dark divine feminine, but particularly for women, I would just caution you to resist the urge to cosplay a caricature of a dark feminine, right? I talked about this on my TikTok. This was
Oh
earlier
wait, a
this year, a
couple
few months ago.
questions. So
Yeah, go ahead.
when you say dark feminine, are you talking
hmm
about like maybe like the dark side of Lilith or like when you say that, how are you using it exactly?
Yeah. So when I'm basically using it in the way that a lot of people now have popularized it where it's a woman. Okay, the one thing that I really don't like is seeing a lot of women use the dark divine feminine as a way to lure men or to
Uh,
okay, so they'll say things like use this dark divine feminine power or these steps to get him to call you back.
oh
Girl,
yeah.
what? Like it's like
Yeah, no.
or
Yeah.
it's for me it's like it's still a part of the same system of sexism if you're trying to get a man's attention, right? And that has just been internalized, right? Because a real dark divine feminine or a divine feminine in general, she's not thinking about a man at all. She ain't thinking about, let me try to turn some heads. Let me get this man to pay for this. That is not what that's about. And so for any woman who's thinking that like, yeah, let me turn on my dark Lilith, you're already out. You're done. You haven't you already failed because Lilith is she ain't about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's unfortunate because again, we're talking about decolonizing sacred spirituality and allowing ourselves to not be monotheistic or linear or one note in our approach to things, right? So the dark divine feminine should be the same, right? And like you said before too, it's about sort of embracing and understanding or banishing the more shadowy aspects of ourselves, right? And we all have duality, we have multi-dimensionalities, multiplicities, all those things, right? So if there's something that we would classify as a shadow, yeah, you should embrace that, like because you learn from that part of yourself too. But don't turn that into a caricature where it's like, let me cosplay a baddie. That's not what that's about, like
Yeah.
it's not what that's about at all, right? And when we talk about dark, divine, feminine, like the wild, the primal, the sexual, yeah, go ahead and explore that too. But again, if you're centering men, you've already lost the plot, right? It's not
True.
about men. It's not about outward validation because Lilith doesn't care. Medusa doesn't care. All these ancient goddesses, the Morrigan, all of them, they don't care about getting approval from a male deity or from human men. It ain't
Mm.
about that. It's about her own pleasure. It's about how she is ready to set some things off when she wants to, and that's destruction, or if she wants to create something, right? Like it's about her. It's not about anyone or anything else. And if
Right.
more women approached it from that angle, I think they would feel better. I think they would feel freer,
Mhm.
Um
Absolutely.
and like this person Greasy Ronnie in the comments, I mean, you're
Who's Greece?
literally in.
Oh.
No, no, no. Let's leave it up. Let's leave it up because I want to do some research. No, no, no. Because I want to do some research on this person, and I think it's really important that everybody
Oh, I
learns from
see.
this situation. You see,
Oh, with the
I think
chicken and
everybody
the
learns from this
watermelon.
situation.
Yeah.
You're
Oh.
entering into a space with two indigenous Black American women who are talking about occult practices. Do you think you're safe? Like, really? You know, like
Ask
these are the
yourself
things
that
that you have
question.
to. Like it's a really good question. Like you're talking about two women who are very adept in the more shadowy, hidden aspects of, let's say, magic or the occult. And we're talking about working with very ancient intelligences that have been classified as demons. Do you think you're safe?
They want to provoke the goddess and see.
And that's fine too, because like I said, my default is rage. I ain't done some crazy stuff in a while, so let's go.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you came on here and that we got a
Oh,
chance
thank
to
you so much.
talk.
Me too.
I
Me
loved
too.
it.
Me
Okay,
too.
so
Me too.
you want to open the floor up for some questions? You want to take questions? Does anyone have a
Yeah, yeah.
question?
Any questions, comments, anything?
And Tehuti now, Tehuti is Tris. Same. Bees,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So his indigenous Kemetic name would be either Tehu or Tehuti. And then and that, I mean, really though. And then the Greeks changed his name. They altered his name to Hermes or
Oh,
Hermes
yes.
Trismegistus. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
also call him Mercury as well. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, yeah. Tehu Tehuti. I've worked with him many, many times, many years ago, and I would highly recommend working with his cosmic gnosis, his knowledge and intelligence, especially from an ancient Kemetic standpoint. If you are seeking to really understand like heightened communication, if you're wanting to understand technology in this modern era, also if you want to learn again alchemy, all the things, Tehuti, Thoth, he is
Thank you,
fantastic.
Jasmine.
And thank you, Jazz. And then also Silent Dancer was saying Tefnut, who is she is also an ancient Kemetic mother goddess. She represents, uh, I think she's the divine mother to Nut or Nuit, who is
Which is the sky
she's the
goddess,
cosmic,
right?
yeah, she's the sky goddess from the ancient Kemetic pantheon. And Tefnut is, help me to remember, she represents the air, the cosmic air, if I'm not mistaken. But
I just
yeah,
know
Tefnut is,
she's the
yeah,
sky. She's that sky that the
Newt.
firmament that holds up the
Yep,
stars, that holds up
exactly.
what we sit in as a planet. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, she does. And also Ganesha, or as people would call him, Lord Ganesha. He's incredible. Again, financial abundance, prosperity. Um, Also really helping you to become rooted in your excuse me, sacred energy, and learning how to be very calm, like calm your nervous system, and also to relax into abundance and align your frequency with abundance too. So Lord Ganesha is, I mean, he's incredible too. I've only worked with him a few times a few years ago, but learning his powers and the culture from which he comes, which is the ancient Indus Valley, ancient Hindus, a lot of people pray to him, Lord Ganesha, for abundance, for wealth, money attraction, all those things too.
Yeah.
I highly recommend. Yeah. Again, it's so many deities to work with and to learn from. And they all teach us something very valuable on our journeys. The more that we work with them, or sometimes they will connect us with another deity, that we end up working with a little bit longer,
Hmm.
and being a polytheist, that's one of the best things you can do. You allow yourself to just be open, and
And
to
that's so
receive.
taboo today, which is wild
And
because
it's,
it was not like that in early in ancient times, obviously.
yeah,
You
in
know what I
ancient
mean?
times. Yeah, I mean, it's all a part of the Christianization um of everything.
Yeah.
It's a part of also localizing and also creating a monopoly on divine information or spirituality, which is crazy. Like
Yeah.
that
And
whole
fragmenting
process.
people in the process too. Like all of this
Right.
information, it just breaks
I
people
I
thinking of
completely
it's crazy.
I
You know?
completely I completely agree. I completely agree. I know there's a great comment here. I've had an owl, snake, and a stray cat come to me on my back deck.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And each of those represents the liminal aspects of spiritual awakenings. So yes, the owl is nocturnal. Some say that stray cat
What
or
does
cats in
liminal
general.
mean? What does liminal
So
mean?
ominism, yes, yes, absolutely. That's one of the best practices. Again, being open, to many different energies and divine intelligences as well. And also spiritual practices. But liminal is basically the in between space. That's kind of the best way that I can explain it, is like,
Like a void?
okay, so kind of like a void. Yeah, it's the space in between, like the previous experience versus the future, right? So it, and
Ah,
I'll localize it to more so like experiences that we have as human beings. So if you've ever been in a situation in your life where you know that you're coming out of one phase of your journey, like you've already closed the chapter, but you're kind of in that waiting room, and
Yeah.
you know, like you're in preparation for that next
You
season.
do.
That's a liminal
You
space.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's a liminal space, right? And so
Mhm.
when you work with deities that are liminal deities like Hecate or Papa Legba, there are so many others, and also too, to go back to her comment about the owl, the snake, and the stray cat. So the snake is a liminal deity. They don't necessarily they're not only associated with like water as an alchemical element, but all of them, because the serpent is a divine feminine guide, right? They can help you walk through liminal spaces. They can help you in like the spiritual, the esoteric realm. So they are a liminal animal totem, just like a cat, right? Like especially with, well, any kind of cat, not just black cats, but cats in general, they have a way of being classified as like a universal entity. So they can hop in and they can hop out of different realities. That's why they were so worshipped in ancient Mesopotamia. They're still worshipped today in Istanbul and Turkmenistan and in
Oh,
Turkey.
wow.
They love cats there. Oh yeah. And also in ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, there's a reason why cats are so beloved and so worshipped, because they have this heightened spiritual power where they walk through realms, and so that makes them liminal. And the same thing with owls as
Mm.
well. Yeah, they're nocturnal, and they represent. Some people say like they will help you to know of a particular event that's on the way, right? So they can help you to understand prophecies, right, or help you to decode a prophetic dream or forthcoming information.
And that's
They're also
owls?
liminal too. Owls, yep, owls, yep.
Okay.
And that's why they're associated, again, going back to the beginning, associated with Lilith, right?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, each of those animal totems, those spirit guides that have shown up on her back deck, they are very, very powerful. And working with their energy, also too, one of the things that I've done is like I will give offerings, to like these animals in some sort of context, especially when I travel like outside the country. I give offerings to the land. I do it here in the US too, but giving offerings to the land, if you were to give like offerings like food or something like that on the back porch, to them in like a spiritual context, more of that information is going to come to you in a very potent and also
Okay.
in an accelerated way too. Again, there's nothing that separates us from animals. Is nothing that separates us from the trees, from the ocean, from excuse me, the clouds, the sky. We're all a part of the exact same divine intelligence, the divine mother. She created all of us, and
Yeah.
we all just come in different representations. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
hmm
That's
Anybody else have any
powerful.
other questions? Or thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling to know we're all a part of the same makeup, you know?
Yeah. We're all connected.
Yeah. All connected. Anybody have any questions or anything? Well, I will say if you
You
all ever have questions and you want to get in touch with me through my company, my email address, can I put it into am I able to put it into the chat? Hold
absolutely.
on.
Yeah, K
Yeah, let me
Love
see.
is
Let me do
interested in
that.
your info.
Thank you.
And I'll
Right.
I'll post it too on the channel.
Oh, good. Okay, yes, because I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to do it.
Oh,
Anyway,
good.
I'm
Don't
gonna drop it in
worry.
the comments
I'll
later.
put I can put it in.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. She's gonna drop my email into the comments, and um also too, if y'all have enjoyed this conversation today, this live about decolonizing sacred spirituality, and if you want to learn a lot more about the power of your melanin, the power of your womb, and also if you're looking to really get a firm understanding and an overview of the black goddesses, black cosmic goddesses, on
Mm-hmm.
next Saturday, on June the 6th, I'm hosting a specialized live course
Yay.
called the Black Radiant Womb. Yeah, Black Radiant Womb, Melanin Magic and the Cosmic Matriarchy. So I am extremely excited for that course, and it's going to be live. It's a one-time event, and I hope that you all come out. If you enroll right now, it's an automatic 20% off of the original cost. It's just going to be for one time. Um, and you're going to get a lot in return too. So that's also, if you're interested in that, we're going to drop the email into the chat so you can email me about it. You
You know
have
what? Because
7 days
because
exactly to enroll.
we're both
Hmm.
on here, I'm not able to put anything in the chat. So what I'll do is
Okay.
I will post it on the channel.
Oh,
And
good.
it can be the same email we've been emailing back and forth.
Yep.
That same
Yep. It's the
email.
same email.
Hey,
Yep.
give
And I'm
your
gonna.
channel name on YouTube so
Yeah,
people
that's a
can
good
follow
question.
you.
I don't know it off the top, but I'm gonna ask my sister, Jazz. Can you do me a favor? Put into the chat if you can.
Oh,
Put
she
into
can
the
put your
chat
email
the
too.
Yep, if you could put my email address for my company and then also put my the link to the live event next Saturday. If you can help your sister out and put all the info there for the beautiful people here tonight. I've had such a great time and I'm so grateful to you all for this
Nice.
conversation. It's been so fantastic. This is actually my first YouTube live, so thank you so much. I
Hey, we're happy to have you. You are a wealth
Thank
of
you.
information, needed
Thank you so
information.
much.
People need this
Thank you
information,
so
in my
much.
opinion. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And as are you too. Like in just the we talked a week ago, I think. Yeah, last Wednesday.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's been incredible for the last week. So
Yep.
thank you
Yep.
so much. Thank
Yep.
you for all you do. Thank you for your platform
Absolutely.
and everything. Yeah, I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
guys. Well,
you.
thank you so much for checking us out. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you for the likes. And I'll see you guys again.
Yes.
I'll be back
Thank
here
you.
next Wednesday talking. But thank you so much, JR.
Thank you too, Ina. Thank you, everyone. You all have a good one, okay? Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.